Yep. Okay. Good evening, councillors. Good evening. Ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Planning Committee of Sandwich Town Council, Wednesday, the 7th of February 2024. Yeah, no,
That's your minutes. That's your minutes.
Yeah, no. Get it right. I just finished his away. Long. Yeah, Councillor Moore. Welcome, Councillor Moore. Hang on.
What's a foot, Mr. Morehouse? Sorry, I said, what's a foot?
Yeah. Yeah. Item 1, apologies for absence received.
Thank you. Councillor Martin Pennington sends his apology due to travel commitment.
Okay. Item 2, declaration of interest. To receive any declarations of disclosable pecuniary interest for members in respect of business to be transacted on the agenda. No. Item 3, minutes of the Planning Committee. To approve the minutes of the Planning Committee held on Wednesday the 7th of February 2024 and to consider any matters arising from those minutes not covered elsewhere in this agenda.
We're very happy to propose that the minutes are passed by this committee as being accurate and genuine.
Okay. Right, all in favour of that? Yeah. Item 4, public participation.
No question.
Okay. Item 5, planning applications. A, planning application reference number 23/01351, proposal reserved matters application pursuant to outline application 14/00058 for the erection of 112 dwellings, location Car Park E, Innovation Way, Discovery Park, Samskint, CT 139FF.
Oh, yes, thank you, Chair. Yeah, this is a bit controversial, this one. Obviously, the slip road has already been put in for the development, and this committee actually agreed the slip road to go in for that. So, but possibly we didn't know that at the time. There's quite a few complaints against this, including Ash Parish Council, and there was some of the authorities who had issues and concerns over this development as well. But it is essentially it is overdevelopment of the number of properties on this site. There's no provision for any green space. There's no provision for any trees, no children's play area, no particular landscaping or screening from Monk's Way, and there's concerns over the drainage as well. This really is, I mean, I'm proposing that we reject this strongly on the developments of overdevelopment. It's just there's no transport links, so children going to school would have to walk along from Monk's Way all the way along the Ramsgate Road to get in, which is really dangerous to come across that way. So, and they're not putting in any provision of any services. So there's no, for 112 houses, you would have thought they would have offered the town either a doctor's surgery or a pharmacy or something with that number of houses, a provision like that. But they haven't even included a children's play area. So and for those of you that have actually gone online and looked at the actual houses, I'm very sorry to say, but I find them the ugliest houses I think I've ever seen from the developer's plans. So my proposal is to reject this strongly because overdevelopment for the site.
Whilst I don't like any of this, I did read that in 2015 500 houses were green. So I don't think we're likely to have any impact on reduction. But I did see something that said there was supposed to be a retail and educational facilities, and there's no evidence of that. And this is more than 20% of that original 500. So if we can have any influence on that, it's something. Yet again, they've got 3-storey houses, which is all about density of properties, but they're not really very practical, certainly for an older demographic, which, you know, we have lots of older people in the area and people are living longer, and it's a lot of people are converting garages legally or otherwise into living accommodation. These don't have garages on the ground floor, I don't think, but 3-storey is ugly, and I don't personally think it's always suitable. Some of these are 3-bedroom houses, and they have 3 stories, which just seems crazy. But I don't think we'll be able to change that. It's just my view.
Yeah, I agree with Councillor Carter. I don't know the history of this, why this outline permission was given in September 2015. It just seems crazy that this car park area, which serves the Pfizer development, Discovery Park, should be built upon. It's not a site that's in the local plan. It's at least half a mile from the urban fabric of Sandwich, with no pedestrian or cycle links. Well, you can walk, but it's a long way. It's like building a separate settlement almost. It is. It has no logic in terms of urban planning. And reading the design guide, it talks about the variety of the houses that will be built. When you look at the pictures, they all look like rabbit boxes. Exactly the same. So I'm against it. Okay.
Yeah, forgive me if I'm wrong, Chair. I agree with all the councillors' comments. However, this is a reserved matters application, so plan application has already been approved for these dwellings. It's to look at the designs and stuff, which I agree with. They are bad taste design. I do agree with the infrastructure around it. That's a industrial estate, not a residential estate. So I also agree with Parish Council's with their comments that they made on the 19th of February after their meeting. The only thing I could suggest is the council to refuse the plans. So if they can't refuse the application, they can just refuse the plans. I believe you're correct. Sort of Town Park can correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, so usually if it's an outline, it is something, obviously, as you say, 2015 has already been provisionally agreed or proposed. So, I mean, any feedback that, you can sort of get to it, and obviously those comments will be fed into the planning application process.
I mean, the Ash Planning Committee strongly objected to the planning materials consideration, the layout and density of the buildings, the flooding and drainage and the parking and transport, as Mr Mayor has really said.
It's also, I was just going to just raise the matter, although it is outline planning, and there's usually the 3-year rule. So usually when they've actually been given outline planning, they have a minimum of 3 years to undertake any construction. So
I think that's half.
And that's, yeah, 2015. It is, yeah.
Is there any requirement for social housing?
There should be. Dover District Council stipulates that, I think it's, I don't know if Councillor Morehouse knows, it's usually 30% of the housing has to be social housing.
There is a document in there which talks about the requirement for affordable housing being 30%. When they do a affordability assessment, and they're effectively saying it's not viable to provide.
It's a combination of social housing and affordable housing.
Yeah, we had this council thought issue. We had this some years ago when they were developing Willowbank. Because of the cost of the development of Willowbank, as long as if they do social housing, it doesn't have to be in sand. Willowbank was going to be a deal. Which we thought crazy because Willowbank sandwich, the social housing should be sandwich, but as long as it's within the Dover District area.
Another issue is that of people who are invalids and have to cross the the pavement is too narrow, and I would have thought it's probably too narrow for people with small children and babies. I know that applies to Willow Bank, but
Yeah.
it would also apply to this proposal.
I've got a proposal to strongly reject. Do we have a second?
Hang on. We haven't looked at the tree warden's report. I think we should at least consider it.
Sorry, I was actually quoting from the tree
Yeah, I think you
warden's
was.
report. She said there was no playground. The first bit of my actual proposal was overdevelopment, no green spaces, no trees, no children's play area, no landscaping. That was from the DTW.
All right, you didn't say that, so I didn't realise.
Oh,
Anyway.
No.
Apologies.
That's good.
Okay. You've got a second, haven't we? Yeah. Yeah. Councillor Wall.
Councillor Wall.
Yeah. You're in favour that we strongly. Yeah. It's unanimous. Strongly. Item B, planning application reference number 23/01437. Proposed erection of a single-storey rear extension, demolition of part of boundary wall for widening vehicle access, and insertion of sliding gate, re-advertised amenity description. Location 12 Britannia Terrace, School Road, Sandwich, CT 139HT.
Once again, Mr. Chairman, this had 17 objections on this application. So I think that sort of signifies that there's quite a strong disagreement with this planning application. When you read through most of the objections are actually about the vehicular access, because we did hold a site meeting, Sandwich Town Council did hold a site meeting, and we went and had a look, and the road is literally under 4 metres wide. So there's not really the space to turn a car, and they've knocked down a wall and put some fencing there, saying that it used to be a vehicular access previously, but most of the residents that have lived there for 30 years or more said that it's never been a vehicular access. So, and they're proposing to put a sliding gate in, which the neighbours have put in, which is an Airbnb property. But the problem is with the sliding gate is apparently it's very noisy. So when vehicles turn up in the early hours of the morning or late at night to attend the Airbnb, it wakes up anybody that's living opposite. So my proposal is what we actually said previously, because of the sight lines and the very narrow provision of this road. I propose that we object to this, strongly object to this plan application.
Wasn't there a question of demolition of part of the wall without planning permission?
That is correct.
Can I just make a comment, please, Chair? I know the person in their application, so I'll be abstaining from voting. So I know the person personally, and I won't be voting.
Yeah, because we did strongly object to this, and when we asked for I think the Council Morehouse was going to call it in over,
Pending the result.
yeah.
So that was a proposal.
You've got a proposal, yeah.
We strongly object.
I've seconded it. There's all in favour that we strongly object to this.
Thank you.
Item C, planning application reference number 24/00133. Proposal display of 3 internally illuminated fascia signs, acrylic window signs, and internally illuminated ATM signs. Location Thrift House, 1A Short Street, Sandwich, CT 139BN.
Do you want to let Councillor Marie go first?
This is obviously this is nationwide. They want to replace their ATM and they'll put their illuminated signs. We've had this before in the past with Costa when they first came in and wanted illuminated signs. It's not in the character of the town, so I object to illuminated signs.
I'd like to
illuminated signs.
Yeah.
I'd like to second that. That's a proposal. These signs, we don't allow illuminated signage in the town, which is known. And these signs, I mean, the fascias, you're talking 5.28 metres. If that was internally illuminated, you've got, almost 5.5 metres of illuminated sign on that junction of King Street and Short Street. So I mean, I'm very surprised that Nationwide putting something like this forward. It's absolutely dreadful.
You remember when we had the other ATMs, so they applied and they were told to put the ATM, but they weren't allowed to turn electric on, weren't they?
That's
None
it.
of them were illuminated.
That's
were they?
it. No, that's
They've known
correct.
that.
And that should be the same for this one. So I second Councillor Marie's proposal, no internally illuminated signs.
Refusal. Anyone comments?
I remember the struggle we had with that property in Strand Street with the illuminated sign.
Yeah.
It seems to me this is just a corporate application. It's not really based on what the local office require. But it's clearly not appropriate in a conservation area. And it's over large and inappropriate.
You just thought they'd ask for local knowledge, wouldn't you, from the local office? Especially a building society.
And I just wanted to add, this planning committee very well knows that the property opposite, I think it's called Frums, on the corner opposite, have spent literally tens of thousands of pounds reinstating their property back to what it was before, with a lot of the, for instance, the roof had hand tiles on, which were put on due to war damage, bombing during the war and things like that. They've spent tens of thousands of pounds trying to reinstate theirs to fit in with the conservation area. And these people putting in applications like this. That's why I say it's disgusting, really.
So we've got a proposal from Councillor Marie, second by you. All in favour that we reject this application?
Strongly.
Yeah. It's internally illuminated, yeah. Item 6, withdrawn planning applications. Receive and note the withdrawal of planning applications. Item 7.
So, none to receive. Planning decisions. To receive and note the latest decisions taken by Dover District Council on new planning applications. Planning application reference number 23//01417. Proposal reduced to a height of approximately 2 to 3 metres, 1 holm oak, the subject of a tree preservation order number 3 of 1997. And this was 99 St George's Road, consent granted. Planning application 23//01397. Proposal the erection of a first floor rear extension. This was 21 Watson Lees and consent has been granted. Planning application reference number is conservation/21/01572/C. Proposal discharge of condition 18 programme of archaeological work pursuant to application 21/01572 variation of condition 2 plans of planning permission DOV/20/00166 comprising changes to the layout, appearance and landscaping for 303 dwellings and associated works. Condition park approved. Item 8, street furniture applications. To receive and consider any applications made to DDC in relation to a street furniture consent application under the Local Government Miscellaneous Provisions Act 1982. Please note, none to consider at the time of issuing this agenda. Item 9, licensing. To consider any licensing notices and issues received from Dover District Council. Please note, none to consider at the time of issuing this agenda. Item 10, enforcement. To consider any enforcement notices and issues received from Dover District Council. Please note, none to consider at the time of issuing this agenda. Item 11, correspondence. To receive and consider correspondence relating to planning matters, including notification of appeals against refusal of planning applications. Please note, none to consider at the time of issuing this agenda. Item 12, the verbal update from our Dover District Councillors on matters relating to planning.
As you know, 57 Mill Street, I am trying to liaise with Councillor Edward Gibbs, who is the portfolio holder for planning and the built environment, alongside Roger Walton. I've asked for updates I'm also going to refer back to them this week about the application that was put in over a year ago, which is DOB 00176, which is enabling works for the removal of failed fabric from the interior of the listed building to facilitate the erection of structural scaffolding. It was validated in July last year, and the status at the moment is still awaiting decision, so I think I'll find out about an update for that. The second one was the calling request referring to St. Peter's Street, and that was DOB 2400168, I believe. Wasn't. 24, I believe, 00068. And the update I've had referring to that states, your request to take the planning application at the above address committee has been noted and added to the file. Just as an aside, there is a current excellent permission which has already been granted for approval for the change of use of the ground floor and first floor to a dwelling. Since there's no change in policy since the previous application was decided, the officer's recommendations in relation to the change of use will remain the same. The other changes will be considered under this application, which include the rear extension and the changes to the door and window to the front of the property.
Okay, I'm sorry, Chair. Can you just explain that to us, Councillor Morehouse? So it's the council officers have already made a decision on the property in St. Peter's Street.
Yeah, there's another application here which refers to 2022. It's reference 22. This would have been submitted in obviously in 2022. 22, I believe, 00228.
See, and was that granted?
That was granted.
Can I just ask Councillor Morehouse if there's an update on the wayfarers, because the fencing's sort of gone up, it seems to stop, if there's any more going on.
I have asked because I looked at the fencing and it's not particularly interfering with the street scene, which was our major concern.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to find out if that's the extent of the fencing that is going on.
It looks like they're clearing the site now.
And I'm waiting for an answer on that. If that is the total extent of the fence, I don't believe it's particularly unsightly.
Two things, one on the St. Peter's Street one. I think we should ask for a clarification about to what extent the local plan, as almost adopted, overtakes this previous decision. Because clearly this property is within the primary shopping area, and it should not be converted into a residential unit, even if a decision has been taken previously. So I'd like a legal opinion on that from the EC.
Clarifying, doesn't it?
And then secondly, on 57 New Street, the role of this committee is not just to be reactive and looking at planning applications within the standing orders. It's also to look at wider planning policies, strategies, etc., etc. So I wondered if on that property, which has been of concern to this council for some years, we could seek to have the officers from DDC come to this meeting, indeed, so we can talk it through, and find out why they're not doing anything, what action they can take, and how we can get this property back into some form of use.
And particularly, I mean, there's been threatening from DDC of a CPO, you know, which is really the only route to go down now, because at least with a CPO, the building could come into public use. And I think if it was brought into public use, perhaps we could apply for grants to get it reinstated.
I think they were just going to take them to court one time, weren't they? And then keep changing ownership. The ownership keeps changing.
I am chasing this.
Yeah, it's right.
process.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm bashing my head.
Yeah.
It's extremely
They're
frustrating.
running rings around the council, aren't they? Legally.
And finally, referring to the new development of Windsor Road, Montague Place. So there's two issues here. One of the residents got in touch with me about 3 weeks ago because they've erected a road sign, if we can correct, called Black Mill Way, I believe. They've actually put it down as Black Hill Road,
Oh, so I can't
which
spell.
is not good because it's going to have an impact on deliveries.
Yeah.
And worse than that, potentially an impact on emergency vehicles.
Yeah.
If they come across this road sign and they can't find the road.
Yeah.
And the other thing concerning with this development is the trees,
Yeah.
which are being badly neglected.
Yeah.
And I've raised that again with the officer who's in charge of the original application when it was submitted in 2019.
That's right. I think the problem with that was with Bridleway, wasn't it? And they're having bollards put there, so we wouldn't want an emergency vehicle to use that as an address, otherwise they've got there's a snake thing in the bollard, wouldn't they? You know,
No, I'm talking about the access off Windsor Road,
Yeah.
not the access from Black Lane, which
No.
isn't access.
yeah, sign guys, yeah.
But the trees and the shrubbery that we
Yeah.
planted haven't been maintained, they haven't been planted correctly. The tree warden's given me a lengthy report on it.
Yeah, I was one of the residents up there, because I think very often, because they've got a company, haven't they? Yeah, so it's I think the residents are chasing the company up, you know, the maintenance company, management company. It's their problem, they're not really doing their job properly. I'm not sure whether the developers have actually handed the whole thing over to the management, it's all up in the air at the moment, it hasn't been signed off about it yet. But the trouble is, they're all dying out and they're taking all of them.
Could I ask if there's been any progress on the Admiral Owen?
They've started work on that, haven't they?
Well, I asked the owner about that
Yeah,
when I gave blood about 6 months ago.
yeah.
And it was supposed to be starting imminently. But it's the second time I've heard the rumour that work's about to begin, because I heard the same rumour in January last year.
I've seen the buildings in there, but it might be a problem with getting the correct timbers.
What I've heard, and it's just what I've been told, I don't know if it's true or not, what I've heard is that the original panelling and the original staircase have been removed from the building.
I think it's having a new staircase, but isn't it?
Well, yeah, but the original,
Should be
yeah,
I think the question was they had removed it and the planning enforcement got involved and they said, no, you need to put it back, put it back. So
That's
how it was
yeah.
before you could continue with any more building works.
What's your space we do, isn't it? Okay.
And the last thing I've had is complaints, which came from the MP's office. There was an emergency in Hazelwood Meadow 10 days ago, and the ambulance had to back out onto St Bart's Road because of the lack of parking spaces.
So that came through to me as well, yeah, so, which is something that needs to be addressed. I asked Councillor Morehouse if something Councillor Morehouse and I have discussed for many, many years, but in Hazelwood Meadow, there's no scheme of parking. So there really needs to be some sort of scheme of parking. The only scheme that's put in is if anybody applies for a disabled space, they mark out a disabled space. But otherwise, it's a free for all, and basically people park exactly where they want to. And then, of course, many years ago, KCC put in the wooden bollards. Was it DDC? Was it? Beg your pardon. And but then, you know, to stop people parking on the green areas, But then, of course, everybody was double parking and parking across driveways and all sorts of things. But the issue with the emergency vehicle needs to be addressed, because if emergency vehicles can't get into these places, it's going to cause problems. So
The NDC are undertaking a parking review, which is going to look at village car parks. I would suggest that actually do need to do a parking needs strategy. Because of the change, encouraging people to use electric vehicles, and there's no charging points. So there needs to be a parking needs strategy across the whole of the district.
The thing about Hazelwood Meadow,
It's
though,
going to be expensive, but it's got to be done.
yeah, I remember when they built Hazelwood Meadow. I mean, when you go in, there's an alleyway on the left, but there is a load of garages on one side, isn't that? And there's a load of garages on the other side. I just wondered, do the residents actually use the garages, or they'll keep their cars on the road?
Because under the right to buy scheme, only the semi-detached houses that near St Bart's Road have got their own garages.
Yeah.
The others, under the right to buy, were not offered alongside the houses.
No.
So the garages are rented out separately.
Yeah,
You've got two problems. Quite a lot of the garages are used for storage.
that's right.
The other problem is a lot of the modern cars won't fit in those garages because they were built for cars when the estate was put up in 1965.
That's exactly the problem, though. If you go, we've got the allotments, and you go there, and there's a load of garages there behind those houses. That's exactly the same. They're all,
There's only about half a dozen.
yeah, but they're all done separately, aren't they? I know people in the town have got them garages.
Well, just to add to that, so part of my remit for the Townsgate Heritage Project is parking in the town. And there's a common situation where people are double parking so narrowly, people can't get down roads such as Bart Road and down by in the Jubilee area where I live. I'm more than happy to work with Mr Mayor and Councillor Morehouse because they live in the closest vicinity to Hazelwood as well. So, and I do believe quite a lot of people that drive, get the trains to London tend to park there because the double yellow line's been put place down into Barton Road now. So I'm more than happy to help with that.
the other issue you've got in Hazelwood Meadow, which you've got to take into consideration, is the sheltered housing for the elderly there. So, which is the same as Fordwich Place. We had the issue with Fordwich Place. We had sheltered housing which go in Fordwich Place on the left-hand side. And we did ask KCC to put double yellow lines in there, and they're still waiting for them.
That's for the ambulance as well, wasn't it?
That was for the ambulance, yeah.
That's exactly the same, wasn't it?
Yeah. We must protect the elderly.
Cast my mind back to 2014 with a visit around various hotspots in the town with parking issues. And one of those places visited was St Bart's Road at 3:30 in the afternoon. When I asked the highways officer how would an emergency vehicle get through here, their response was, they'll find another route. And that is in an emergency situation where every second counts. 30 seconds is the difference between life and death.
I know years ago, you know, Millwall Place goes up to the bowling club. They put the curbs in and people started parking, and the fire brigade said can't get their fire pump up the middle. So the town council actually spent a few £1,000 for it. I think it's 25 yards, I think 30 yards of fire pumps maximum. So they actually widened the pavements, or narrowed the pavements, widened the road. And some of the residents actually complained that we've wasted money on widening the road. He said, well, it's for the fire pump to get the houses at the end.
Probably is useless now because cars are getting bigger.
Yeah.
So they're getting wider.
Yes, Chairman. I don't know, maybe I'm out of date on this. I thought there was some action going to be taken on the Friary site, that the owner had been given some sort of deadline by Dover District Council, after which Dover District Council were taking over, and people are asking me what on earth's going on, because as far as I can see, nothing's happening at all. I thought they were going to take the action and then respectively charge the person involved.
21st of February is the deadline.
That's gone, isn't it?
And I've asked for an update on that, and the officer in charge has promised to give me an update on that.
Could that be brought to the next meeting, please, if possible?
It's a mixing. Yeah. Okay, thanks, Bob.
Sorry, can I come back to my points I made about St Peter Street and the lines, whether we can pass the
Get the planning stuff.
a resolution.
So that's to ask DDC planning officers to attend this
Yeah.
meeting to discuss these points forward. So I'd like to second that proposal.
Yeah.
So,
All in favour of that? All in favour of it?
to a future meeting.
Yeah, to a
Or to the next one.
Okay, thank you. Okay. So, okay, item 13, date and next planning committee meeting, 3rd of April.
Oh, it is a Wednesday, yes. Yes, it's bank holiday.
Meeting closed.
7:05.
It would have been 5 to 7. I was reading the wrong way.
You were getting all the stuff read out for you.
Well, yeah, I know. I like to start having to get in front of the
Oh, I've had a few conversations with the
Yeah, that's
Oh, yes.
And it said, and
you've got the article as well. Sent it to me. Yeah. Did it not? Yeah. I don't know. Yes.
Yes, really nice.
Oh, yes. No.